Thank you, Carol. Thank you for this lovely conference with much thought-invoking conversations. It's been wonderful. I have no disclosures. I'm here just quickly on this slide raising the topic that there are 3 creatine deficiencies that we focus on, and we focus on these because we have common goals. We all want to replenish the creatine in the brain. We all want the earliest diagnosis possible and improve quality of life for our children. So I'll quickly tell you a little about my family, bring a little GAMT into this meeting. Our journey as new parents, we had our first child. She was healthy, chubby, beautiful, and seemed very typical to us until probably about 18 months when she just was not really socially engaged. She had just started to walk, which we were told that's just soon enough, that's okay. You know, she's just a little slow, don't worry about it. And we heard a lot of that, just it's okay, it's okay. We worked really hard. We did a lot of therapies, and up until when she was 5 years old, she started to have little staring spells. And when we asked about them, we were told she's not verbal, she thinks, be patient, just keep waiting, until she one day climbed up to get a cup out of the cupboard and had a spell and fell. And we quickly recorded one of those spells, asked the pediatrician for his input, and that was a Friday. And on Monday, we were in the neurology office getting an EEG, learning about what absence seizures are, and then going in for an MRI to make sure there wasn't a tumor or something very obvious causing all of this. And the person that ordered the MRI had heard you should do spectroscopy, especially when there's a lot of impact in the speech, and they just ordered it, and we didn't even know it was happening. And sure enough, no creatine peak, more testing, she had GAMT. So I was excited because it was something I could do, and I could help her finally. And we began the supplements, more therapy, off to school with the typical kids to hopefully get her more and more exposure and learning and socializing. But by the time she was about 12, she had plateaued. She can read and she can write, but it's very on demand and not very meaningful, and that's kind of where she's ended. And I think at that point, after trying to fix my daughter for so many years, I began to accept that she was disabled and that we had missed our period for her, for the best outcome. So an average day for us now is, she wakes up, how does she look? She looks good, we keep an eye on her, she makes it through the first 30 minutes and we think she's okay. But for that first 30 minutes is a little scary because that's when she'll have her seizure if she's going to have it. And she's 20 now, and she will fall and she will break a collarbone or a wrist or whatever. And we have to, we've saved her many times, but not every time. And sometimes she gets hurt. And I've seen her ability to do those things, to read and to write and to express herself, decline with the seizures that have gotten worse and worse over these years. So we've kind of gone in an unfortunate direction. We had 2 healthy children before we understood that we were carriers, and they were fortunate and they do not have GAMT. And then we decided to have our 4th, and of course we had a child with GAMT, but at least we knew this time. So Louis was born in 2011. He's taken creatine since that time, creatine, ornithine, and sodium benzoate, and a somewhat limited diet. And he is almost 12 now, and he's very creative and fun and social and plays hockey and baseball and all of that. So I'm a big proponent of newborn screening. And once my daughter I kind of accepted the disability and that I needed to do more. I joined the ACD in 2015. ACD was started in 2012, and I've been a volunteer board member with them for 7 years and then an employee for the last year. This is our board. These are volunteer parents who are meeting all the time, all week. We're squeezing it in whenever, dinner, commute. We have board meetings. We're very committed, and it's an amazing group of people volunteering their time. But we get the not so altruistic benefit of helping other people and bonding with our community and knowing these families all around the world and feeling like we are making a difference. So how are we making a difference? We're focused on caregiver support through resources, clinical trial readiness. We're focused on early diagnosis, whether that be through advocating with our newborn screening programs in different countries, different states, or funding research. So collaborating, coordinating meetings, funding projects. We're doing all that we can do. We are an international group. I've updated this slide, but it doesn't have it on here. I had pictures of the families from Spain and Italy and Xtraordinaire, and recently ACD Australia was launched, so that they have their own local presence and they can raise funds and they're tax deductible and all that good stuff. But this particular page on our website, parents can sign up. We send them a lot of resources to get them started, including links to a Facebook support group where we have I think we have about 600 members right now, representing about 350 different families around the world. On our website, this is a recently created research paper repository. It has summaries at the beginning of each link. So there are links to what are the CTD research papers and GAMT and AGAT in order of when they've come out, and then a little paragraph so that parents can just quickly read it, understand it, and feel like they're on top of the research and what's happening, or they can click through and they can read the full paper. We have a meeting called our CCDS expert panel. There's a rotating group of experts that help out on this panel. It's in partnership with Dr. Sylvia Stockler, and we review cases that we have created through a parents group that we have where the parents are interviewed. We find out what are the main concerns that they are facing and would like help addressing, and then we talk about ways that they can approach that. So a really common problem that parents face is, how do I get my child to take these supplements, whether it's a GAMT family or a CTD family that's trying the supplements. And we created this guideline with a dietitian and families contributing on all the different things that have helped them. So this is a big, complicated slide, but basically back to that group of families that we've interviewed, the parents group, that help us create the cases for the expert panel. From that process, we are gathering the data to create a CCDS handbook. Because of reasons like, should I worry about cardio issues with my child? Well, let's provide some support to say this would be a standard of care. You should do this. And then secondly, we launched a Delphi survey in English, French, and Spanish. This was a survey to get people's feedback on what are the meaningful outcomes for you, for your child, if your child was in a clinical trial. And we have done 3 rounds of that. The 3rd round is finishing next week. So if you have done round 1 and 2, you have been invited to do round 3, and then we will be meeting and discussing these and reaching a consensus on recommended outcomes. And then the second part of this was all part of a PCORI grant that we got. If you're familiar with that term, it's a really large grant. We've applied for a second grant to accompany the core outcome set guidelines. Would be an outcome measure guide. Now, don't put too much emphasis on the word guide. We're not going to say what endpoints are to be used or how to use the PET scan or anything like that, but more considerations. Considerations like it would be appropriate for different outcomes for females and males with CTD, or this would be an inappropriate tool because the IQ that's measured by it is not low enough and you won't see the progress and you'll fail a drug even though it's doing very well. So that is our next project that we're pursuing. We're also meeting with the FDA. We met with them earlier this year in an externally led patient-focused drug development meeting. This is a first meeting you kind of hold where you say, we want to tell you all about this disease. And we had over 300 people attend virtually. People were calling in, filling out a poll. We had pre-recorded stories from the families, which were amazing, 5 minutes on each family. And we have the voice of the patient report that I just found out it was accepted by the FDA. We can now post it on our website and they will link to it, and it's the official resource. So if a new pharma comes along and wants to develop a drug, they should read this. And then they should quote from this when they apply for an IND and say, this is what we're proposing for our trial design. They can say, this many % in the voice of the patient report, express that this is a concern, and so on. We are advocating for early diagnosis, like I said, because all of our children are diagnosed too late. We need earlier diagnosis, even for CTD. Even though I know, the newborn screening criteria is there must be a treatment, we have to start working on this now because there's going to be a treatment. So it took 7 years of advocacy work in partnership with our good friends from University of Utah, but the RUSP, which is the Recommended Uniform Screening Panel in the United States, finally added GAMT to the list the beginning of this year. And so now we are working state by state. We were working with our friends in Australia who did a great job, and they've gotten an approval to expand from Victoria to the whole country. If you know of somewhere that's screening that I missed, please let me know, and I will update this. But we have a really active community, and we launched the Creatine Deficiency Research Center at the beginning of this year, and we told our community we need the $250,000 US to do this, and they rallied, and we were amazed, and we dedicated all of that funding to research. So we started that project at the beginning of this year. Steve Baker is leading the first project here, and there is several recordings of him explaining this research on the internet, but it's exciting. And we also fund fellowship awards. This will be our 4th year, and these applications are opening up October 1st. So if you have, you mentor a fellow that is working on something interesting and you could use some seed money, apply. And we host regular conferences, just helping all of this happen, all of these conversations, and who's doing what, and I didn't even know, and now we know, and now we can work quicker and harder and more together. We have a natural history patient-reported or caregiver-reported registry with 187 patients enrolled, and we are working constantly on expanding that. I think the benefit I would point out here is that if you don't want to say again and again and again, when did your child first crawl? When did your child, this is a resource that is owned by our community and can be built upon. And so if a researcher is interested in learning more about seizures and we launch a seizure survey, we can pull the data across surveys to answer more questions about that. Well, at what age did this person that responded well to lamotrigine, when were they diagnosed, when did they show symptoms, tell me more, and you can comb through a lot of data and pull it all together. Some of the surveys relaunch year after year so that you can follow the changes over time. This is one example of a partnership-sponsored study that we did this year in the registry, an oral medication survey, and this was an interesting finding. What flavors do participants prefer? And who would think unflavored? Unflavored wins. So, if you're a researcher and you have a proposal for a survey, we would love to include that in our registry. Or if you just need data to support the work you're doing, please reach out. So thank you. It's lovely to see everyone in person, and together we make the difference. So thank you. Thank you, Carol.